Tanse. I'm Chris Nachkete. Welcome to APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. The Shishalh First Nation in British Columbia says another 41 unmarked graves have been found at the former St. Augustine Residential School. The findings come after an 18-month investigation involving archaeologists and ground-penetrating radar. This brings the number of unmarked graves to 81 after 40 others were located in 2023. According to the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation, St. Augustine operated between 1904 and 1975 under the Roman Catholic Church and the federal government. It burned down in 1917, was rebuilt in 1922, and burned down again in 1975, just months after it closed. Children from 53 First Nations, some from as far away as Saskatchewan, were forced to attend the school. It was known for poor food, harsh physical abuse, and low-quality education. Chief Lenora Joe says her community is in mourning.
These findings and the areas scanned were all driven by the stories and the memories of our survivors, our elders, and family members who have been carrying these truths and burdens with strengths for many, many years. We are deeply saddened, but these numbers are not a surprise to us. We have always believed our elders. Our families in the shishalh and First Nation communities across the country have always spoken of the children that never returned home.
In the city of Winnipeg, a motion to ban encampments of homeless people in areas where children gather has been put to City Council. Julia Ross spoke with the councillor behind the motion and the head of a frontline organization that works with the homeless.
Encampments in Winnipeg continue to grow and spread into different neighborhoods, despite the NDP government's election promise to end chronic homelessness. City Councillor Cindy Gilroy has tabled a motion to ban encampments in areas where children gather, places like community centers, parks, playgrounds, and splash pads.
I'm hoping that the motion will bring that, that people understand that that's not a place that they can set up shelter, and that I'm hoping that it will lead to a greater discussion on what we're going to do with the growing encampment situations that we are having.
Gilroy says she has received calls reporting children finding weapons and knives, witnessing a fight, and that daycares have started doing neighborhood walkthroughs before letting children play.
The daycares around the neighborhood have come to me, and they were really concerned about weapons and needles and other drug paraphernalia that they were finding, and just some of the escalation that was happening at some of the parks where kids were playing.
Gilroy says her efforts to limit the effects of the encampments haven't worked.
I've tried to do various motions to try to deal with the problem, get parks cleaning up a little bit more, and some of that worked, but I think the issue is increasing.
People who work with the unhoused agree things are getting worse, but problems like this won't get eliminated because an encampment is no longer there.
Someone not getting food that day if we can't find them on outreach, or if someone's using substances, it could be an overdose that we're unable to respond to or provide resource to, or they're not where their friends know they are.
Jamil Mahmood leads the Main Street Project. They offer help to the homeless and people struggling with substance use or mental health challenges. To him, instead of focusing on a ban, investing in mental health crisis outreach teams is an appropriate response.
Ideally, if this comes into pass, there's actually a plan for how we manage this, how we mitigate any other life safety concerns for folks, and an actual strategy for dealing with, and not just enforcement.
Gilroy hopes her motion before City Council will kickstart discussions if passed in September by vote.
We're going to have to figure it out as a city. Of course, we wish, other governments were at the table, but at the end of the day, the people call us, not the province and not the federal government. So we're going to have a plan of action as a city.
She hopes the city and organizations will be able to come together on the issue.
The organizations are going to have to play a key part in this. I'm hoping that we can tap into a lot of the great workers that are out there right now.
Mahmood says that Main Street Project has yet to see data justifying the motion for a ban, making it hard for the organization to help build a plan.
We'd love to see that and be able to work collaboratively as a sector to figure out how we address what the root causes are of these concerns and not kind of a temporary solution that maybe makes more risk for our community.
Both Gilroy and Mahmood want the city to work with organizations and hope for a more open dialogue. City Council will begin discussions on Gilroy's motion in September. Julia Ross, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
A large group recently stopped traffic in Serpent River First Nation west of Sudbury in Ontario last Thursday. It was an event planned by First Nation elders who are against the provincial plan to spray a herbicide in the north. CTV's Angela Gemmel has more.
This large circle of supporters stopped traffic for about 10 minutes along the busy Trans-Canada Highway. They don't want glyphosate sprayed over managed forests.
It's doing a lot of damage to not only to the trees, but to every living thing on this planet.
Called Highway Action, the event was organized by the Traditional Ecological Knowledge, or TEK, elders. They say only a few weeks' notice was given that over the next month, the Ministry of Natural Resources would be conducting aerial spray of glyphosate over Crown land near Elliott Lake, Blind River, Espanola, and other forest management areas in the north. Along with violating treaty rights, supporters say the chemical disrupts ecosystems, harms biodiversity, and contaminates water.
The food chain is affected for all of us, but for us who also eat from the forest, forage in the forest, and eat the meat and the moose and deer.
We're here to protect our future of our lands, clean our lands, and for the future of our young children, the next generation to come. If they destroy our waters, what's there going to be left for them?
This researcher is looking into how forest and aquatic life are impacted by the chemical, and she's determining what healthy water should look like through an Indigenous lens.
Governments and other Western science just do water monitoring. So how is the trees being affected by the water? How are we being affected by the water when we can't go collect water and do ceremony? And that's another objective, so to develop a water management plan through Anishinaabe water monitoring.
Under Ontario's forestry renewal system, the herbicide is used to inhibit the growth of unwanted plants. In an email to CTV News, the MNR says glyphosate has been evaluated by Health Canada, who has said it does not present unacceptable risks to human health or the environment when used as directed. Angela Gemmel, CTV News, Serpent River First Nation.
TikTok and social media sensation Notorious Cree is up next to share some of his dance moves. That story when we come back. back. The Sault Ste. Marie Indigenous Friendship Centre is organizing a protest. It's against a pair of government bills designed to expedite mineral exploration and is calling on other friendship centres to follow suit. It's a rare move, as friendship centres in the past have traditionally stayed away from partisan causes. APTN's Mike McDonald reports.
Kathy Surrett, the executive director of the Sault Ste. Marie Indigenous Friendship Centre, says the organization is not necessarily engaging in partisan politics. Rather, it's sticking to its mandate to advocate for urban Indigenous people.
Still remaining and having that non-partisan status, but yet more advocating on behalf of our people, for our people, and with our people, you know, in terms of those laws that are not helping our people. For instance, the Bill 5 and Bill C5, and how that affects urban Indigenous people.
Surrett says with friendship centres offering programs designed to reconnect urban Indigenous people with their culture, they too will feel the impact of Bill 5 and C5.
In terms of having, you know, cultural camps such as moose hunt camps, so that we could teach the men in the urban Indigenous areas to hunt and to fish. And if this Bill 5 and Bill C5 are pushed through, that is going to limit again access to the lands where we need those lands to teach our people.
Surrett adds the potential impacts of Bill 5 and C5 should be top of mind for all Indigenous people.
It's time that our people really look at what we are doing, what we are saying, hearing what we're saying. And the only way to do that is to grab their attention and to advocate, not only as a friendship center, but all Indigenous people, urban and the local First Nations, are also invited to come and walk with us. And it's going to be a very peaceful walk, a demonstration, just voicing our concerns over the land. And generally, you know, Indigenous people are stewards of the land, of our waters. And this is going to really impact First Nations as well as urban.
The Say No to Bill 5 and Bill C5 rally will be held the morning of September 9th, which is the 175th anniversary of the signing of the Robinson-Huron Treaty. Mike McDonald, APTN National News, Sault Ste. Marie.
The WAVES 2025 Conference for Indigenous Languages wrapped up last Thursday in Ottawa. The conference celebrated the revitalization of Indigenous languages and Indigenous culture. APTN Savannah Craig spoke with hoop dancer Notorious Cree, who hopes to inspire Indigenous youth to reconnect with their culture.
Notorious Cree, a name that represents a blend of hip-hop and Indigenous culture. That's just what this dancer does. Known personally as James Jones, Notorious Cree is one of the top 5 hoop dancers in the world.
I started out as a street dancer, hip-hop dancer, and when I started doing traditional hoop dancing, you know, when I would do youth shows, I would kind of blend those two cultures together. So I would blend some of the hip-hop with the hoop dancing. You know,
Jones says his hoop mentor encouraged him to intertwine the two.
I never grew up entrenched in culture. You know, I moved from my community, I moved to Edmonton, moved to the inner city as a young Native kid, and, you know, found hip hop and, you know, found all these other outlets to kind of express myself. And yeah, when I found hoop dancing, it was like kind of my way back to my culture, you know, and that led me to powwows, to ceremonies, and things that had been missing in my life for a number of years.
Jones hails from Tall Cree First Nation in Treaty 8 territory, northern Alberta. He took his experience reconnecting to his culture from performing in public to the internet.
Apps like TikTok can be used as a tool to share, you know, educate and, you know, share my storytelling and as well as my dancing. I had a lot of youth reaching out saying, hey, like, can you share more about the context behind some of the dances and, you know, some of the words you're saying in your language, you know.
He says sharing this content can also help reduce stereotypes about Indigenous people.
what they see in the media, Dances with Wolves and Pocahontas and all these Disney TV shows. But, when they actually see that we're just regular people, we have doctors, we have lawyers, we have educators, we have people working in all these institutions. They can see us from that human being side instead of just the Hollywood version that they see a lot.
He encourages those who are seeking to reconnect to their culture to just do so.
It's never too late to learn about your identity, about your language, about your songs, about your dances.
Savannah Craig, APTN National News, Ottawa.
We now want to tell you the results of last week's web poll questions. Our first question was, is it important for the courts to accommodate Indigenous cultural practices? 71% said yes, 25% said no, and 4% were unsure. Our second question was, should people who use illegal drugs be evicted from their on-reserve homes? 41% said yes, 31% were unsure, and 28% said no. Our final question was, do you think private property rights should take precedence over Aboriginal title rights? 55% said no, 28% said yes, and 17% were unsure. Thanks to everyone who took the time to vote. Check out this week's new web poll questions. Head over to aptnnews.ca to see those questions. A Grand Chief in Manitoba says more money should have been spent on preventative measures for this year's wildfire season. That interview when we come back. Thanks for staying with us. Fredericton 19, Halifax 19 and sunny. 13 in Cartwright, the Grand River 7. Quebec City 24, Montreal sunny and 28. Toronto 28 and partly cloudy, Sault Ste. Marie 19. 22 in Sudbury, Thunder Bay 17. The Paw at 14, Norway House 16. 22 in Winnipeg, Princess Harbour 15. Yorkton 18, Regina 23. Meadow Lake 14, Stony Rapids 20 and sunny. Showers and high level at 17, Fort McMurray 25. Calgary 26, Medicine Hat 30. Vancouver 19, Victoria 13. Sandspit 13, rain in Prince Rupert at 16. 4 First Nations in the Island Lake region of Manitoba have been deeply impacted by wildfires this year. There is currently an out-of-control wildfire in the area, almost 40,000 hectares in size. Thousands of residents were evacuated in early July, and some started to return home last week. The chiefs of St. Teresa Point, Wasagamak, Garden Hill, and Red Sucker Lake have called on the government to invest more in wildfire prevention. They are represented by the Ashininu Okinawan Grand Chief Alex McDougall. He joins us now. Thanks for joining us in studio, Grand Chief McDougall. My first question is, can you tell us a bit about how First Nations in the Island Lake region have been impacted by Manitoba wildfires this year? I hear bridges have been destroyed and some communities have been evacuated multiple times.
Yeah, thank you for having me today. The fire evacuations, particularly this year, have been taking quite a big impact on our communities, particularly from our area, Island Lake, and the 4 Hanshininu communities that are located in that area. Garden Hill, Hansinu Nation, St. Teresa Point, Hansinu Nation, Wasagamak, Hansinu Nation, and Red Sucker Lake, Hansinu Nation. The evacuations this summer particularly saw roughly over 6,000 of our members being evacuated as a result of the smoke being affecting our communities, and of course fire threatening our communities. So it's had a substantial impact on our communities, our members, and of course our leadership, and the lack of resources that have obviously become very painfully obvious that there are some resources that are needed in our region to sort of combat those annual forest fires that we see in our area. This year, through climate change and perhaps even industry, have contributed, I think, to the dry conditions that we've seen in Manitoba and in Canada. And the water levels in our area have been at a historic low. I've never seen the water levels to be the height that it's at, and I think it's contributing to the conditions that make our area a high-risk fire zone.
Mm-hmm. Grand Chief, this summer is, from what we can tell, the worst wildfire season in Manitoba since they began recording wildfires 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. More than 1 million hectares gone so far. Do you think all levels of government could have been better prepared, and if so, how?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think going back from my recollection, 2017, I was currently chief for my community of Wasagamak. We also faced a similar evacuation of our community as we've seen this summer with Garden Hill Hansinu Nation, where there was a complete evacuation called, and essentially families being uprooted from their homes, running from the fire, and the governments and their response. This is what I believe to be still happening, is that there's really no proactive approach to fire suppression. They react more or less, and spending a lot of resources in the evacuation process. I think in the neighborhood of 650 million annually, and just shy of 2 million in responses. And I think that needs to change. We need to flip that around and have more investments in our communities where we're allowed to build capacity locally and be able to respond to these fires before they get out of hand.
Is there anything the First Nations can do to help train local band members in how to build fire breaks, for example, or train them how to be firefighters?
Mm-hmm. Yes, but before I answer that, I'd like to give a shout out to one of our trained firefighters who happens to be from Garden Hill, Daphne Munias. Parents are Susan and Vandell Harper from Garden Hill. She's been fighting these forest fires alongside resources that are being deployed from Mexico and other areas to help with the fire. So I'd like to commend her and all of the firefighters that have responded to the crisis, and encourage our community members to take opportunities where there is training to allow us to develop those skills locally. So yeah, the conditions is something that I think our leadership are seeing very clear now, that we need to have additional critical infrastructure being brought into our community so that we are able to plan for these seasonal events. And we're only seeing that increase as far as the forest fires. So we don't have any all-weather road system coming in that would allow, should we be able to escape dangerous situations using that critical infrastructure. There is no hospital in the Allen Lake area, where you have a population of some 15,000 people, and yet when you compare that population size to other rural populations, they have all of that critical infrastructure. The only difference there is most of them are non-First Nations communities.
Mm-hmm. Augustine Residential recently put out 5 demands of the federal and provincial government in regards to wildfire response, including the need for a national Indigenous fire strategy. Can you tell us more about this really briefly?
Yeah. We're calling on all levels of government, federal and provincial, to work with our community leadership in a tripartite process, where we hope that governments can utilize our knowledge of our territory in developing a comprehensive fire suppression program that would hopefully see support and continued investment by federal and provincial governments. I think it's critical that when you're planning for programming and service delivery in an area, it's important that the communities are also part of that process. And being part of that process is simply having us at that table and us being involved in those discussions, and more importantly, the planning and the resourcing that we would need to be able to effectively have a fire suppression program with Canada and the province.
Grand Chief, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you for your time. Thank
you for having me.
And that's your daytime newscast for this Monday. We're back again for your evening newscast in a few hours. Please join us then. From everyone else at APTN National News, hi miigwech masicho. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next day.